So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan here again, and this is another episode of Backroads Arizona. In this video, I'm going to be mating my long block LS3 engine that I purchased to my new to me used long travel Sandrail that I basically bought a complete rolling chassis minus an engine and tranny. So the first video I did in this series was mounting my twin disc Weddell clutch to this LS3 engine. Then I did do a video about some relay boxes that I added to the chassis to make my electrical wiring a little bit easier to get to. And then this is video number 3, where I will be mating this engine to this transmission in the car. Now, I have been in the mechanical industry for over 20 years now, but it's always been mating a transmission to an engine. This is the first time I've actually mated an engine to a transmission. I'm going to go over this process step by step, along with mistakes I made and helpful tips along the way. So I do feel I have to give a quick overview of what this car did have and what I'm putting in it. So originally, when I bought this car, it had a LS7 engine mated to an Albin's Transaxle. The gentleman that I bought this car from basically wanted a more updated look as far as the chassis goes, but he had so much money into his engine and transmission that he didn't want to have to let that go. So that's kind of how this story came to be and how I got the car. So I had a Mendeola sequential 4 transmission that I was putting in another chassis that I just gave up on, and then I ended up buying this LS3 engine to mate to it. So here's a couple pictures of the Albin's transmission mounted in the car with the LS7. That Albin's Transaxle is a completely different animal than the Mendeola sequential 4. So basically I had to get the fab work done to mount some new bracketry and retube it a little bit in order to make that sequential 4 fit. I got this fab work all done at Performance Works with Kevin Jackson. He's based out of Phoenix, Arizona, does really clean work, and is very fairly priced in this day and age. So when I got my car back from the fab shop, the transaxle was installed in the chassis. However, the brackets were not painted, so I had to remove the transaxle, paint everything up, and then go ahead and reinstall the transaxle. Then I bought my LS3 long block, and we're going to mate this engine to this transaxle. So let's get to it. So I was able to borrow one of these LS engine lifting brackets that bolts in the valley of the engine from one of my coworkers. However, they are pretty reasonably priced on Amazon, so if you do need something in order to lift it, this worked really well. It held the engine centered, and I feel it did make it a lot easier to stab this engine. So you'll notice I've already got that lifting plate mounted to the engine. I'm just lifting the engine up a little bit with a cherry picker I borrowed from work in order to remove the box or pallet that it was mounted to, and then go ahead and removing the bag off of the engine. Now, whether you're able to borrow a cherry picker or you have one or you're renting one, the legs for the cherry picker usually do extend out with a lock bolt. As you try and lift your engine with the cherry picker the first time, it's a good idea to keep your foot on the back of the cherry picker. The reason I say that is by you putting extra weight on the back of the cherry picker, if the cherry picker is not going to be able to handle the weight of the engine, you will feel that back of the cherry picker push against your foot, and you can actually force it back down. If that does happen, you want to lower the engine back down, extend the front legs of the cherry picker out a little bit, and then go ahead and try and lift it back up. The farther you put the front legs out on the cherry picker, the more weight the cherry picker will be able to handle. You can also extend the top arm on the cherry picker if you need to reach in further. However, you don't want to do that much more than you absolutely have to, because the more you extend that front arm, the less weight that cherry picker is going to be able to handle. And if you do extend that top arm to reach in somewhere, make sure you extend those bottom legs as well. You'll notice I actually have the top arm out a little bit further than the legs. That really isn't a good idea. However, this is an aluminum block, so it is a lot lighter than your cast iron blocks, which enabled me to extend the top arm a little bit more than the bottom legs. As a good rule of thumb, I would say keep the arm and the legs at a minimum of the same length to each other, and it's almost better to have the bottom legs sticking out further than the arm to handle more weight. So checking your surroundings, make sure you've got enough room to lift the engine where you need to lift it, making sure you're not going to have any obstructions. You'll notice here I'm doing it in my garage, and we had a little problem with the joint in my garage. It was timed perfectly where the front wheels of the cherry picker were right in that groove, so I couldn't really push it forward anymore. So I had to back the engine out a little bit, remove the wheel chocks from my chassis, roll the car back a little bit. So the front wheels of the cherry picker did not line up perfectly with the joint as I was trying to mate that engine to the tranny. Another thing that can make this go a lot more difficult or a lot easier is when you do the initial pickup of the engine, making sure that it is sitting at the same angle as the transmission. If your transmission is sitting at one angle and your engine is sitting at a completely different angle, you're going to have a lot harder time getting these two things to mate up to each other. Usually eyeball is good enough for this. If you're not good at eyeballing something, you can always put a level on the engine and a level on the transmission bell housing and make sure those bubbles are pretty much in the exact same position. Now keep in mind, this does not mean that bubble has to be perfectly in the center of the level. The bubbles just have to be in the same position from the engine to the tranny. However, I am a firm believer that the closer you're sitting to level with the tranny and the engine, the easier time you are going to have. And the reason I say that is if you're sitting perfectly level, you change your angle of your engine or transmission and you're just pushing straight in. If your tranny is sitting at an angle and your engine's sitting at an angle, as you go in, not only do you have to go in, you have to go down and in at the same time, making it more difficult. If you need to get a different angle on that engine and you're using one of these lifting plates, all you have to do is set the engine back down real quick, grab it on one of these other holes, and lift it back up to see if you're at a better angle to match your transmission. Now, under normal circumstances, when mating a transmission to an engine, you just put the transmission in first gear, and then you turn the output shaft of the transmission to rotate the input shaft of the transmission to help spline it to the engine. I also did not have my CV axles on at this point, so I couldn't jack up a tire and spin the tire and put it in gear in order to turn the transmission. So I decided just to grab a breaker bar and put it on the front crankshaft of my engine and rotate the engine instead of rotating the transmission to line up the splines. The other thing this does for me is it allows me to push on the engine a little bit while I rotated the engine. So when those splines hopefully lined up, it was just going to push right into place. Now, if your engine's playing nice, this is all you'll have to do and it will pop right up and mate perfectly up with that transmission. However, you'll notice that mine is not cooperating, and I'm going to go over some helpful tips you can use to help stab that engine to the transmission if necessary. One of the most critical things that you need to pay attention to when trying to mate a tranny to an engine or an engine to a tranny is as you go to put it together, you want to make sure that your air gaps between the transmission and the engine are the same top to bottom and side to side. Remember that you are trying to line up a splined input shaft of a transmission with a clutch and a pilot bearing that is sitting in the flywheel. And if that input shaft of the transmission is not in perfect alignment with the clutch and the pilot bearing in the flywheel, you are never going to get it to mate up correctly. Now this can be difficult, especially if your engine is tilted or leaning on the cherry picker a little bit. So what can help you manage this a little better is getting some bolts that are about 2 inches longer, if you can, than the actual bell housing bolts themselves, and thread those bolts by hand through the transmission and into the engine. Never use these bolts to try and pull the engine to the transmission. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you try and pull those bolts and tighten them down in order to get the engine to stab to the transmission, you could damage your transmission by shoving the input shaft into the transmission. You could also damage the clutch or damage the pilot bearing that is in the flywheel, all which would result in you having to pull things back apart and possibly replace some very expensive items. So once again, never tighten these bolts down in order to try and pull the engine to the tranny or tranny to the engine. The only reason we're putting those in there is to give us a pivot point, to make it easier to use the cherry picker to even up the air gap top to bottom between the engine and the transmission. Once putting the guide bolts in, I gave it another try and didn't have much luck once again. Now another thing to keep in mind is if you're out more than an inch, then it is probably your clutch that you're struggling to get splined or lined up. So in that case, you want to use something to rotate the engine or the transmission to try and get that splined. You'll notice here and before in this video, I'm only struggling in this last maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So I am splined through the clutch, and the only thing I'm trying to do here is get the pilot bearing lined up in the flywheel. So you'll notice I'm not really using the breaker bar anymore. I'm just trying to leverage the engine in different ways to try and get it to go that last 1/2 inch or so. That doesn't mean it necessarily hurts to try and spin the engine. Sometimes that will help too. But right now I am in the clutch, so that means the transmission is going to be a lot harder to turn over. So just keep that in mind. So at this point, I was still struggling, so I decided to pull the engine back out one more time and use another trick that I use when stabbing heavy duty transmissions like in a semi truck. and that is to take some anti-seize and put it on the part of the input shaft of the transmission where it goes into the pilot bearing in the flywheel. Now, I don't recommend putting this on the splines where it goes into the clutch because you really don't want that anti-seize material possibly getting on your clutch discs and possibly causing slippage. So once again, just put it on the input shaft where it is going to go into the pilot bearing in the flywheel. You'll also only want to use a minimal amount of that anti-seize. You don't want big globs of it that could possibly fling off over time and get in the clutch either. Once doing that, we went ahead and tried to stab it one more time. I don't even know if I really needed to put the guide bolts in this time, but I went ahead and did it anyways. The engine also has a guide stud on each side to make sure that that bell housing is perfectly centered on that engine. I got it slid up pretty close to where it was when we were starting to struggle with that problem. I did use the breaker bar a little bit just to make sure I was splined to the clutch. Once doing that, I ended up putting my feet against the oil pan and then holding on to the rear part of the chassis, which gave it that final little oomph to completely mate the engine to the transmission. And not to sound repetitive, guys, but I do want to emphasize one more time, I never used any type of a wrench or ratchet to try and pull the engine to the transmission in any way, shape, or form. I only used my hands to put those guide bolts in as a pivot point. There should be absolutely no air gap between the engine and the transmission bell housing before taking any type of a ratchet or wrench to the bell housing bolts to tighten them down. So right here, I'm removing the guide bolts and putting my bell housing bolts in and torquing those down. As far as the torque spec for these bell housing bolts, I found a couple different numbers online. One was 35 foot-pounds and the other was 37. I went ahead and torqued mine to 40 because I was using an adapter. A couple of these bolts I could not get to with my torque wrench, so I went ahead and grabbed a regular ratchet, felt the tightness of the ones I used with the torque wrench, and tried to duplicate that by hand to the best of my abilities. Once tightening down all the bell housing bolts, I went ahead and slid the motor mount plates into position and got the bolts started into the engine. So you'll notice in these video clips that I'm struggling to get some of these bolts started through the motor mount plate to the engine. And one helpful tip that I learned a long time ago is if you grab an alignment bar or a heel bar, you can put that inside one of the bolt holes and leverage the plate where you need to get the other bolt started. Once you get to the last bolt hole, if you're still struggling to get that bolt in, then you can put the heel bar in that last bolt hole, leverage it so the threads are lined up with the hole in whatever plate you're trying to get started. Tighten down a couple of the other bolts that should hold that plate where you put it. Then remove the heel bar and hopefully you're lined up enough where you can get that final bolt started in that plate. And keep in mind, this is an aluminum block, so if you're doing something similar to mine, you don't want to risk cross-threading that block because the bolts are a lot tougher than that block and you can destroy the threads in the engine. So you do want to make sure you get these started by hand before taking an impact or tightening them down with a ratchet. Once getting all the motor mount bolts started in the engine, then I went ahead and torqued those to 43 foot-pounds, which is the spec that I found online for the engine mounting bolts. Once tightening down all the bolts from the plate to the engine block, I did have to get the final two bolts through the small rubber isolators that were in the chassis. I used the cherry picker to kind of lift or drop the engine to help line those bolt holes up and went ahead and tightened those bolts down. And that's about all there is to it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it gave you some good information. Keep in mind there's going to be several more videos to come in this series about this car, including the accessory drive pulleys, water pump, electrical, programming the Terminator X that I got for this system. I eventually want to put a supercharger on this car, and those videos will all be coming up. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. The whole concept of my channel is to give you guys the most information in the least amount of time as possible so I don't waste your time. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Later.